Well, welcome everybody. We're so glad you're joining us for Wednesdays at Home. I know we're a day late. It's early Thursday morning. I have to meet our special guest today before the sun comes up on a Thursday morning. It's kind of the only time we can make it work this week. But I'm really excited about a brief chat with a couple of our Colonial people who also happen to be doctors. So I know Ryan and Terry from Colonial. Ryan Bannon and his wife Mandy are both doctors here locally. They're both on our Young Life Committee, so Carrie and I know them from there. Ryan's on our finance team. I don't know where you get all the time, Ryan, to do everything you do. Father of three. I'll let you introduce yourself in a second. And then Terry is one of our deacons. Your life was just radically changed while as a part of Colonial a long time ago. Terry, I love your story. That's for another time for you to maybe get to share your story again. And then your wife Karen, and so we're just so grateful for you guys making the time to share with our people this morning. Why don't you guys both, I may have stolen a little bit of thunder. Why don't you guys both introduce yourselves? Tell us a little bit about your family, about what you do professionally, and your connection to Colonial. Ryan, why don't you start?
Okay. I'm Dr. Ryan Bannon. I'm an obstetrician, so I deliver babies for a living. I work at the women's clinic, so I've been there for 13 years. And I'm also the medical director for labor and delivery and women's services at United Regional. So that means we oversee pretty much women's services. I mean, that's the best way to explain it. I trained at A&M as well as the University of Oklahoma, so trained locally. But that's pretty much what I do. I've got 3 kids, 7, 10, and 13. So, and then Mandy also is a physician. She works at the women's clinic as well. We both deliver babies. So that's kind of us. And we've been at Colonial since before, I guess, I got here. So my wife transitioned here a year before I did, as she finished training early. So we've been at Colonial for about 14 years.
About 14 years. Wow. I don't think I even realized it been that long. What about you, Terry? Tell us about you.
Okay, so I'm Terry Johnson. I'm a pediatrician. So see, I like to think of Ryan and Mandy as the quarterback, and I'm the running back. They catch the football and hand it off to me. So
Yep.
we don't do the wildcat here. We don't directly to the running back. We don't do that here. So anyway, I grew up on the West Coast. Sorry. Went to Oregon State University and trained in Portland, Oregon at University Hospital up there. I did my residency up there and then joined the military, and they decided to send me to some godforsaken place, or I thought it was anyway, in the middle of Texas. I didn't know where Wichita Falls was, but we came here in 1992 and got drugged to Colonial by some friends of ours. We weren't churchgoers back in Oregon, and I actually got saved here at Colonial. And we've been going here for, I hate to say this, 28 years. So yeah, we've been here a while, and we have 2 sons. I'm not going to say their ages, but I actually have 2 grandchildren, or 3 grandchildren actually. Sorry, we just had them over yesterday. I'm a little tired from that. So yeah, so I have 3 grandchildren. So, but I've been here practicing pediatrics. I did 2 years at Shepherd, and then from '94 on, I've been in private practice in various locations. But for the last 15 years was by myself, and then we merged with Community Health Center 2 years ago. I'm the neonatal medical director at United Regional. So yeah, so we, Ryan and Mandy and I get to work together a lot.
Well, I'm grateful for you guys taking the time to bless our Colonial people. I know you guys, obviously you shared, you've been a part of Colonial for a long time. You've seen several pastors come and go, like myself. I hope I get to speak like you guys are right now about how long you've been here. That's my heart's desire. But we know you love the church. We know you love people. We know you guys, let's see, 42 years between the 2 of you. Of medical practice. I want to ask you guys, from your unique perspective, what are your thoughts on what we're going through? That's a broad question, I know, but what are your thoughts on what we're going through with this pandemic from your medical expertise side of things?
You want to start, Terry?
Okay. One of the things I think that's that's the most challenging thing is I don't think we've ever gone through anything like this as a nation or world in quite a long time. I think people are trying to equate it to things that we are familiar with because when you're dealing with the unknown, it's easier to grasp onto the known or the experienced. But I think this is something that has been unprecedented for a very, very long time. Although I do think that people's memories are very short, that we did deal with similar situations back in the 30s and 40s and 50s with things like smallpox and Spanish flu and even polio. People don't realize people used to quarantine in home because of polio back in the 40s and 50s, and so it's unprecedented for our time, and it's complicated by the fact that this huge information overload that we can get through the internet that pretty much everybody can become an expert in about 5 minutes on anything if they want to.
Yeah, I think I agree with Terry. A couple of things that I think is different is as physicians, there are things that we see, or as scientists that we see on a regular basis. One of those is change, and that change happens in science. And so what we think is sacrosanct may not necessarily be the same way 5 years from now. And Terry and I are used to that, one antibiotic that you use to treat an illness may not be what we treat it with 5 years from now. The other thing is that I think a lot of people don't understand is that science, we argue. That's the point. We vet what someone else says. And so just because expert A at Duke, who won the Nobel Prize in 2015, says one thing, and the guy at Stanford that won the Nobel Prize the next year, doesn't mean that one's right or one's wrong. It just means that's how we vet. And all of this, which usually goes on in the background, is now forefront on a daily basis. And so all of this that we discuss, that we argue, that's the whole process of coming up with an answer, is happening in front of everybody, in front of the general public. And I think that that's what's hard for people to understand, is that Terry and I are used to that. We're used to sitting down and having multiple different opinions, and then we digest that and then help formulate a plan for our patients. And so I think that that's really hard. And I see that with my kids. I see that with my patients. I see that with my own family, that they don't quite understand. They're like, well, why is he right and why is she right? And we're all trying to come to that, what the real answer is.
Mm. Yeah, that's fascinating, and you're hitting on one of my biggest questions is, and you've answered part of it, but keep going with that. What's hard for you guys from your unique vantage point with the knowledge base you have, with how used to it you are with vetting, with arguing, with debating, with change, to watch just this broad base of information for us. I mean, it's all over the map and it's contradictory, and it's I think I joked about it in a sermon recently. I almost just don't even want to get on social media, because people I actually really care about and love are
Mhm.
are mad at each other for believing or not believing, or agreeing or not agreeing. What's that like for you guys from your educated, trained vantage point?
Well, I think one of the temptations we have to avoid is, and this is part of I've called it forever, the microwave generation. We we tend towards we should know the answer within that 30 minutes or 60 minutes that it takes to tell the show. I mean, House did it all the time. So why can't we have the answer right now? And why isn't that answer the right answer right away? And they don't understand that that's not the way it goes. So what we're seeing played out in front of us right now, like on social media and even in like the major news outlets, is that it's just like that parable about the four blind men trying to describe an elephant, and they're all got a piece of it, and they all think they know exactly what an elephant is, and they don't. And so my thing is that we have to be patient, and that's the hardest thing right now, because we don't like the unknown. We want to grab onto the knowledge right now. We want to know the answer right now. We're not, and then we want to know, well, why don't we have the answer right now? So of course then somebody's keeping the answer from us. It's like, no, that's not the way it works. That's not the way science works. We're moving faster at trying to understand this virus than we've ever moved in any time in history, because we do have the amazing resources available to us. But at the same time, we have, even in our educated medical professionals, stepping outside their area of expertise because they're an authority, because they've got some initials after their name, even though it may not be their area of specialty. but by
Mhm.
golly, they know something because they're a doctor. It's like,
Yeah.
it doesn't always work that way.
Mm, that's a good word.
And I think what Terry gets at is it's hard for us to be able to explain that to our patients, and that's what's hard. Is I mean, I had a patient the other day say, "Well, if I get it, will my baby get it?" And the largest study we have right now is out of China, and it has 17 women in it. 17. I mean, that
Wow.
if I study on 17 people, I would be laughed out of the room.
Right.
But have such small data sets, that's what we're using. And the problem is you have bias that's in that, and you're trying to explain that to someone that there's inherent bias, there's all sorts of different things that can change the data. Just probability. I was working with my daughter on math the other day, working on probability, and the probability that that's wrong is pretty high. I mean, just because it's 17 people, you don't have an answer, but you want to provide the most up-to-date information, and
Yeah.
that may change. 2 months from now, we may have 40 people that's in a study from Germany or something. And then that changes my answer. And that's not that I don't know what I'm talking about. It's just that 2 months ago, we didn't have as much information as we.
Do you feel, Ryan, do you feel pressure then? I didn't even think about this, but count me among the many who's turning to guys like you going, okay, so what's the deal? Do you feel pressure to provide something you don't necessarily feel like you have, or maybe just to help us understand in a way that at some level we can't? Do you feel that kind of pressure personally?
I, I think, kind of as an obstetrician, there's a lot of stuff that we don't know. And so I have to sit there just on a regular basis. I have to tell someone, I don't know. And I don't know if you can do X or Y or Z. I think it's fine, or I don't think that it's fine. But I think that as physicians, it's not black and white. And a lot of people think that medicine and science is black and white. And in some instances, it is. I mean, physics, there's a whole lot of black and white. But in medicine, there really isn't.
Mm,
And I mean, I have patients that will say, "Well, is it okay for me to take this medicine while I breastfeed?" And I'm sure Terry gets that all the time. And you sit down and you're like, "Well, it may not. I mean, it gets in the breast milk. It may cause this. It may not." So to answer your question, I don't really think that I feel uncomfortable just because we do it on a regular basis.
all
It's
the
just with.
time. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I want to affirm you just as a brother. I mean, that's the humility you have to bring into an area where you're supposed to know a lot, you know.
Sure.
So I mean, I know doctors, at worst in movies are these narcissistic, arrogant, I can save the world types. I'm really dating myself here. Thinking of was it Alec Baldwin in Malice back in the day. Um, little side doctor film reference. But seriously, kudos to you for just being able to be very comfortable in your own skin, in your knowledge base to go, we don't know. That's a great question. I can see why you'd have to be grounded there. Do you have similar thoughts or anything else, Terry, about the
Well,
pressure?
well, it helps to think that I remember on the first day of med school, I can still remember that far back, where I remember one of the docs who was giving us orientation said, "Hey, just big heads up, half the stuff we're going to teach you in the next 4 years is going to be wrong,
Mhm.
and the other half will be right,
Wow.
and you'll know that in about 20 or 30 years, but we can't tell you which one is which right now. You just got to learn it all." And we're seeing that played out in front of us now. Some things that we thought were true. I mean, they're just figuring out how to treat this particular situation. It's just that we're learning as we're going. It's why it's called practice sometimes. But that's not what people want. They want definitive answers now. So it is frustrating, but it is easy. The most important thing you need to be able to say as a doctor is, I don't know. I'll look into that. I'll see if I can find someone smarter than me, because there's plenty of people out there that are, and that way you can reassure people that it's not always, yeah, it's just like Ryan said, black and white. There's not always a definitive answer immediately. We might get there eventually, but we want to head in the right direction.
Mm. Well, let me ask you this: what do you guys think, if anything, is unique about our situation here in Wichita Falls. I mean, maybe it's not nearly as unique as I think it is, but I do know, obviously, we're not Italy or New York or California or pick another crazy hot spot in the world. We're not even Houston. I've got some really good friends down in Houston, where we used to live for a long time. They're not even thinking about reopening church, anytime soon. Um, but it's because, from my perspective, their numbers are different. Their cases are way more. Their deaths are way higher. They're also living on top of each other a lot more than we are. But that's my layperson's perspective. What do you think is unique for Wichita Falls from your vantage point?
Well, I think we do benefit from the fact that we've had, well, I don't know if benefit's the word. I think we've been blessed by the fact that we haven't had an overwhelming number of cases. I think our medical community here mobilized immediately in anticipation and we're ready, which is great because that was not the case in like New York and places when they got overwhelmed. And so the fact that we knew we needed to be ready and that we were ready was amazing, on a comment on this medical community and the leadership here. So we were happy with that. But we got blessed and we didn't see the big numbers. What's interesting is that you could just go down the road to Abilene, which is a city they have 10,000 more people than we do, but they're pushing 300 cases now. And up
Really?
to the fifth death. Yeah.
I did not know that.
They're in the midst of, and they did some of the exact same things that we did. So why did they get a little bit more than we did? And who knows?
Mm.
But it also, I think the difficulty there is that because we haven't been hit so hard, then there's this tendency for people to say, oh, we overreacted and we shouldn't, everything's fine. And it's like, we don't know that. It's just like before, people were worried about worst case scenario and we prepared for that. And we're happy and blessed that it didn't happen. But that doesn't mean we're out of the woods yet or that anything's over. And we should just like start up life as usual, because this is a reality that we're going to have to face moving forward.
Mm.
I guess I'd have to echo Terry's comments that we got the benefit of not getting hit as hard. So we have the benefit of seeing where others have failed or haven't been successful. And but on the flip side of that, we have to understand that we're just as susceptible as everybody else. And just because we live a little bit further apart or what have you, doesn't necessarily mean that the virus can't spread amongst us. And so we just have to continue to be careful.
Mm. I can't tell you how encouraging it is to me, not just to hear from you guys right now, but I was texting both of you the second week of March when this was all hitting, and just I think the older I get, the more I'm embracing what I don't know, and it's so good to be able to lean into people in their respective areas of expertise. So I appreciate you guys, I really do. Any words of encouragement for our people? I know we talked a little bit about some of the things we're going to talk about, and I don't think I mentioned I was going to put you on the spot about that. But any words of encouragement for us, from your unique perspective as a medical professional?
I don't know that I have words of encouragement necessarily. I just have I don't know, my patients know that I tell stories and that's kind of how I see things. But I was on labor and delivery on Monday, and it was the exact same thing that happened. And I saw two things. One was I had a nurse that needed water for a patient. There weren't large enough glasses. And so the scrub tech went to go get, and so he solved the problem by doing two separate glasses of water as opposed to one big glass. She wanted a big glass, he brought two glasses, but the problem got solved. The patient got water. It just wasn't how the veteran nurse thought that it was going to happen. So we need to understand that we may solve this problem differently. The second thing that she said, which I loved, was if you see a need, fill a need. And I sat there and just how simple that was. And she was talking about how she was getting on to the scrub tech that, hey, you saw that this patient needed water and you didn't go get this patient water. But we need to understand that we solve problems differently, and that if there is a problem that we truly need to help someone else, whatever that is. If you see a need, fill a need.
Mm.
And so I guess that's my, not necessarily my encouragement, but my, hey, let's sit down and work as a team as opposed to working in an adversarial relationship. And if someone solves a problem differently than what we thought how they should solve it, but if it got solved, hey, it got solved.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, that's my random thought for the day.
Well, that's good. That's good stuff. What about you, Terry? Any thoughts?
Well, I've been encouraged by, it's interesting, even though if you were to just get on social media, which is what most everybody does, and you'd see like, oh, everybody's fighting and everybody's angry at each other and everybody's mad. And yet at the same time, I've been impressed with the number of people that even though they may disagree, that are stepping up and helping each other when they need it. From going to buy needed supplies for others who don't have them, to sewing face masks. I mean, people have just been doing things to help, even though on the surface, if you were to, grill them down on what they believe or how things are going with this, they'll disagree vehemently. They still may. That doesn't seem to affect the human heart and wanting to help. That we can disagree, but still know that we need to be here for each other. And so I've been encouraged with that, because I've seen it over and over. And even people that I've seen who have like they don't even really talk a lot anymore because they disagree so bad. And yet I've seen within the last week, one of them reach out to help the other because they needed something, or they just needed a little encouragement, and they did it. And so in many ways, I've been encouraged that some of this has actually broken down some of those barriers that would exist and have existed over the years for other reasons.
That's good. That's good stuff. I'm flashing back. This is not exactly what you're talking about, but there is something about God using awful circumstances to break us down and bring us together. When I've been in Houston for a couple of hurricanes, and some of the most awful circumstances, and yet some of the most beautiful things happen. People just rallying around each other and loving their neighbors. You wouldn't talk to their neighbors for 2, 3, 4 years, and then their neighbors in crisis, and all of a sudden they're over there at their house helping them.
Right.
That's the kind of thing that is beautiful to see, for sure. Well, let's maybe wrap up with a little bit personal. Terry, I'll put you on the spot first. What's it been like for you in your personal, just your journey with the Lord through this? I mean, we've been in this craziness for 6-7 weeks plus, at least here locally. What's it been like for you in your walk with Jesus?
I'm a pediatrician, and so for almost 30 years now, I get woke up in the middle of the night all the time, and I'm used to that. And I would wake up in the middle of the night, and usually there'd be other things I'd be worried about or whatever. But now I would always learn that my wife always gets on me because she says, well, you never have trouble going back to sleep. And sometimes I do, but I always seem to find calm and comfort if I just like, okay, well, quit worrying and pray, because that always seems to make things better. And at least it calms me and gives me that comfort. And I find myself doing that more, especially when you're dealing with frustrations and stuff during the day that you really, once again, have no control over. We're not in control, and that's, as physicians, we don't like that. We don't like that at all. And so it's been helpful to hold on to that. It's also been helpful. It's made me appreciate my family, my Colonial family, better. I pretty much believe I was literally born again at Colonial, and so it's my family, and so it's been one of the nicest things about this is, once again, clinging to that faith family that I have. We have not lost touch with our small group, and you guys, and the Wednesdays at Colonial. I mean, we need that. It's our encouragement to get up and do it again each day that we have to, knowing that we have each other, and that God's at the center of all that.
Well, thanks for sharing that. What about you, Ryan?
It's been interesting in that the devotional that I've used for years, I really like Our Daily Bread. I've been probably since I was 16.
It's a classic.
It's classic. My dad handed me, it used to come in the mail, and my dad would hand it to me, and he's like, this is short, you can get this done. It's not a long thing. And so what's been neat is seeing how a lot of times you will read it and be like, I don't know really how this applies, but I can tell you over the last 2 months that every single one has been, I mean, it's but what I've needed that day,
Mm.
and funny is one day I had missed it, and then my iPad brought me back to that day as opposed to the current day. And so even though I read the one from yesterday, it was what I needed for that day. So it's really interesting to see that the Lord speak in those ways. Um, One of the other things that I think is really neat in my walk is I have wonderful, I love my patients, but I had a lady come who I've been seeing for years, and amazing lady. She gives me a hard time because she always asks for permission to put me on the prayer list at her church because she thinks that's important. Um, and I think that it's neat. But she walked in the other day and she's like, just asking me how I'm doing. I'm like, oh, I'm good. And she sits there, and she's an older lady, and it wasn't patronizing, but she pats my hand and she says, no, how are you doing? And so the whole point was, it's like, yeah, I'm here for my annual visit. Yeah, I'm here to make sure that I see you as my doc, but I want to know how you are doing and how can I pray for you. And that's a real role reversal, because Terry and I are used to, we're the ones that are doing the stuff, we're the ones making the plans, we're the ones that are, up at 2 o'clock in the morning delivering the baby, taking the baby, whatever. And this lady was taking time at her visit to say, how can I pray for you? How can I encourage you? How can, you know I serve you? And that was just, that was just mind blowing. And so those two things have been really what are neat, is to understand that the Lord's present even in people that we're trying to serve. They're serving us. So that's neat.
That's fantastic. Thank you guys for sharing. Let's finish maybe a little lighter. Couple of brief questions. What's your biggest fear? We've been going through love over fear last couple of weeks. We're going to continue that moving forward. So whether it's quirky and really embarrassing, or it's something we can all relate to, what's your biggest fear? And then just in a sentence or two, who's Jesus to you? I'd love to hear that from you guys. Terry, tell us first.
Well, my biggest fear is heights.
I
I really don't like heights. And so before all this happened, Karen and I took a visit to New York, and we actually went up into World Tower One and it was just like, they have this, apparently they have this, I've heard they have this floor of glass that you could walk over
You've
if you
heard about
wanted
it. You
to.
haven't seen it, but you've heard
I
about it.
stayed way far away from that. So yeah, heights, not so much. More importantly, and I learned this many years ago with some other experiences, I have a fear of not feeling useful.
Mm,
Not not I've learned over the years, it's my feeling of not fulfilling what God wants me to be doing, that I just spinning my wheels doing nothing. And so I don't like that. And so my feeling is that, to me, Jesus is who gives me purpose, reminds me who I am, that I don't have to do anything to be his child,
mm,
but I want to do for him.
mm.
And so I try to remember that each and every day, that when I'm doing it, not, I am doing it for my families, and I am doing it for the kids, but I'm really doing it because it's my gift back to Jesus for what he's given me.
That's awesome. That's awesome, Jerry. What about you, Ryan?
I'd probably say that my biggest fear are 13-year-old boys right now.
Well, thankfully you don't have. Oh wait, you do have.
Oh, yeah.
So that's probably my biggest fear. And I think that what Jesus is for me is the rock that lets me be able to not know, and to be able to, he's the only thing that's constant. And so with all of the change and all of that, that really is, and I don't know how to really explain it, but there is a point at which you have to cling to something. And at this point, that's really the only thing that you can. I have friends that are losing businesses and are, that are trying to feed families, or losing parents. One of the members of our medical community lost their mom this week to coronavirus in New York. And that's hard. And the only thing that I see that's constant, that doesn't change, is my Jesus. And
Mm,
so that really is, that's the best way to explain it, is
mm.
that's what he is to me.
Well, I'm
And
encouraged. I'm encouraged at this wee hour on a Thursday morning to hear y'all's hearts, to have you both speak with great confidence about what is, and to both of you so clearly hold very loosely to what you feel like you know, and what only God knows. I'm really encouraged by both you guys. Thank you. Let me pray for you both and your families, and then and Terry, would you pray for Colonial on behalf of all of us? Would you just lift up the church to him as well? Let's pray together. Father, thank you again for these guys. Thank you for just the uniqueness that you have made in each of them. Thank you for their life journeys, the ups and downs, and the way you've taught them new things and redeemed them. Um, Lord, specifically, I lift up Ryan and Mandy and their family. Lift up their role as parents. Lord, would you give them what they need, especially in their busyness, to love their kids well, to be present. Lord, we lift up both of them as they serve so many families and bless families and care for families and bring tools and knowledge to people like me and my family. Um, we lift up both Ryan and Terry in the way that their jobs require crazy hours, short runs of sleep, and just responding to, if nothing else, just the many babies that come at all hours of the day and night. Um, Lord, we celebrate the many things that they've gotten to be a part of, uh, as well as the hardest things they've had to walk through. Lord, I can't imagine just the depth of grief and challenge they've got to be a part of as well. Lord, thank you for the way you've crafted them and equipped them to do this. Lord, I lift up Terry and Karen as well to you. Thank you for the encouragement they've been to me since I got here. Lord, we lift up the small group that they lead, the people they care for and love. Lord, we celebrate the redeeming work that you have done in both their lives and the purpose you've given them on loving other people around them. Um, Lord, I just lift up both these guys and their families and pray your richest blessings on them. Thank you, Father.
And Father God, I just want to lift up Colonial. Lord, you've brought each and every one of us to this family, and we've been blessed to be a part of that. And as much as we've missed being together in the same building, we are together in spirit. And I really want to lift up our leadership. Been so impressed of their desire to listen to you, to listen to the best advice that they can get to take care of this family that they've been given, this responsibility that they've been given. So we're so thankful for them, Lauren and the staff, and we're thankful that we do continue to gather in your name on a weekly basis, even though it may not all be in the same place. Father, we're appreciative of that. We're appreciative for that family, and we ask you to continue to have Lauren and the leadership, the elders, continue to lean into your guidance with the responsibility that they have to do the best to keep everyone as safe as they can. And Lord, to know that you are in charge. That is the one thing that we can hold on to, is that you are the one. You are the great physician. You are our rock. And so we appreciate that. And we praise you for that. And we just ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, guys. I mean that. I really do. This has been even more encouraging, and to me personally, I don't know who's going to watch this or how many people are going to be blessed by it, but thank you so much. Ryan, I know you got surgery in 30 minutes. My mind is blown. 30 minutes from now, you're going to walk into surgery. I have no idea what that is like, but I know you've done that many times. So I hope you both have a great day today. Okay. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Lauren.
Okay.
Lauren.
We'll see y'all.